Redditors who rode the bus to and from school, what was your most memorable moment on the school bus? I have two stories. In middle school my bus once caught on fire a block away from the school. It was a tiny one but enough to call the firefighters. We all piled off and watched them do their thing. They brought a second bus, which also caught on fire. Eventually we were brought a third bus 30 minutes later. This was all during the winter and we weren't allowed to walk back to the school because of safety reasons. Never understood why it was more safe to have kids standing outside in winter next to a bus on fire than to walk them a block back to the school. The other time I was in first grade. My bus driver was a crazy nice guy. He knew us all. One day my aunt who always picked me up wasn't there at the stop. He said that I could stay on the bus and we would drive back after the route. Maybe she was just late. We drive back and she still wasn't there. So he asked me which house was mine. He drove us there and parked his bus. We rang the bell a bunch and threw small rocks at her window. Nothing. Her car was there though, so it was very weird. My friend's mom drove by and saw us. She offered to take me to her house so I could call my parents and stay there for a while even though it was her birthday. Bus driver left and said don't worry, she's probably just asleep. Turns out she was eternally asleep and had a brain aneurysm earlier in the day. I'll never forget that day with that nice driver though who wanted to make sure I was safe before he left. He even made sure to look out for me for the rest of the year. Great guy. One time our bus hit a car in a roundabout. Guy we hit was completely at fault. He must have not understood the turning radius of a bus or something. We were close to school and our bus driver was like, well, I gotta deal with this. So we got off the bus and walked to school. Two cops dressed in SWAT gear riding the bus with us. A man had shot and killed 4 people in our neighborhood. The scene apparently wasn't secure yet or something, so they cops had to ride with us while the driver dropped us off. I had a bus driver who would purposely speed up when going over speed bumps so the kids could catch air. He got fired eventually for running into some garbage cans. All the kids on my school bus made a collective effort to buy our bus driver a Kindle at the end of the year because he was always reading. He was such a cool and friendly guy too. Some more backstory. He was also pursuing a master's degree at the time and the year we got him the Kindle was the last year he'd be our bus driver. He's been driving the same group of kids for about 6 years now and seeing him go was pretty sad for all of us. He even knew all of our names. I hope that man is doing very well in life now. Yes, he did get the Kindle. The student that organized it all gave it to him when she got on the bus. As a bus driver myself, I love this. I always have coffee with me in the mornings, so for the holidays all my high school kids got me gift cards to Dunkin' Donuts. I had about $90 worth. We had seen kids setting off smoke bombs and fireworks on the bus every freaking year for a month before and a month after Halloween. A smoke bomb even landed on me and burned my skirt through once. When the bus drivers told them off they used to just swear and act like they owned the place. One day we had a bus driver who just drove the bus to the police station when that crap started, and a few of the kids who were throwing the fireworks were crying when they got taken off the bus by police. The buses had CCTV too, so they couldn't even deny it. I was so glad when my older sister started driving and I could get lifts with her instead of going on the bus. Ah, sweet justice. Freshman year, a girl I was sitting next to opened her backpack and I saw a gun in it. She saw me see it and just gave me a hard glare and shook her head. I planted my eyes on the back of the seat in front of us and didn't even look at her the rest of the ride. I went to kind of a rough school. AWW fuck. Once while picking up a kid, a dog got on the bus and everyone went nuts and started petting it. The driver eventually shooed it away. This sounds like the best thing that ever happened. First day of my freshman year, a girl sitting across from me showed off her nipple ring. I always sat near the back of the bus from then on. I was in 5th grade. We all boarded the bus after school. Bus starts driving and we were rowdy. Bus driver screams shut the F up several times. He starts yelling louder. We ignore him. Suddenly he slams on brakes. We fly all around in the bus. He parks it right there in the lane. He opens door and walks away. We just watched him fade into the distance. Eventually parents started showing up and we all got rides home. I will never forget that bus ride. Frick this, I'm out, drive yourself, bus. When I was in 6th grade I moved from a really small town where I could walk to school every day to a much larger one where I had to ride the bus. I was having trouble finding my way around the school the first week and ended up running very late to catch the bus at the end of the day. I was already beating myself up about the fact that I was going to have to call my parents who would have to leave work early to pick me up, but when I got outside the bus was pulled right up to the doors waiting for me. The bus driver knew I had been on the bus that morning and verified with my brother that I was supposed to get on the bus to go home, so he waited. I know it seems really insignificant, but with all the stress and anxiety I was feeling trying to settle into a new house, new city, and a new school, it made a lasting impression on me. Thank you, Ron. Ron Wilson, bus driver. I drove a school bus for students who were in the juvenile court system. They had been expelled from every standard school in the district and attended classes at juvie. They had been through 6 bus drivers in the first 4 weeks of school when I received this school as my first assignment. Started 2 weeks prior. I am a retired Greyhound driver, so their crap wasn't anything I hadn't seen before. They thought they had run off the other drivers so I would just be next if they screwed with me. There were only 12 students, but because of their school it took about 3 hours to drop them off all over town. The general rule is, when you pick up students in the AM you start at the student farthest from the school and work your way there. In the PM you drop off the closest first. The 2 students that should have been dropped first were the biggest smartasses. They would throw crap, scream and swear, then laugh that they were getting off, and too bad for me. I told them to clean up their torn up paper. They laughed and swore at me. I followed procedure and wrote them up to their principal. This meant nothing. They are already expelled, what else can they do? So, the next day, I loaded the students, they started their crap, and I drove the morning route home, i.e., farthest kid first. Man, they started screaming, "I'm gonna call my mama. I'm gonna get you fired." I laughed. I told them their mama would appreciate that I kept them supervised for an extra 2 hours. Every time one of them acted up, they were last to get off. They bitched about turning the radio on. They got Dr. Laura or Sean Hannity. They stopped their crap in a week. You don't understand. I'm not locked in here with you. You are locked in here with me. 6th grade, the driver stopped on a rural road and 2 sisters got out. The little one darted across the road and almost got hit by a car going 50 miles per hour that didn't stop. I can still feel the tension. 8th grade, a friend taught me how to gleek. Still one of my most useless talents. What's a gleek? One day on the ride home in like 3rd grade, this kid Nick that lived in my neighborhood caused a ruckus and the bus driver turned around and pulled back into school. The bus driver yelled and said, "Alright mister, wise guy, what's your name?" Nick responded, "Nick." The bus driver asked, "What's your last name, Nick?" Nick said, "Elodian." Everybody laughed, but the bus driver didn't catch on. The principal came onto the bus and the bus driver said, "We have had a lot of fooling around on the bus and it was all started by Nick Elodian." We all cried laughing and our principal just shook her head and took Nick off the bus. God, I just started cracking up. Ah, that's great. We had to make God's eyes in Spanish class. We unwound them and flew them like kites out of the back of the bus. Then we realized we could slowly unwind them to catch on trees and signs to decorate the town. Then we did it with a bunch of 8 tracks we found in a guy's garage. We called them streamers. We had decorations laid out over our bus route for months. Cars had to hang back behind us to not get hit with them when we slowed. No one ever said anything. Also, the time we slid off-road during a snowstorm and everyone just got off and walked home. That was fun. I had a really big crush on this guy. I was staring longingly at him through the mirror above the bus driver, like dead on creeper staring. Then, he pointed or motioned towards me or something and I suddenly realized he can see me staring at him, OMG, and felt like the stupidest person on earth. I was like a dang cat thinking I can see him in the mirror but he can't see me drooling at him. OMFG, I've done this before but not on a bus. I stared at my crush through a window when he was in lessons for 30 whole minutes, and he messaged me later on in the day like, "I saw you when you were outside my class and I just number. I think I died that day." It was the late 70s. I think I was in 7th grade. Our bus driver was a very cool guy everyone called Animal. The bus was an old one with a stick shift and clutch. Last day of school, Animal drives the bus to a nearby park and instructs all of us to the back of the bus. We all pile up in the last 3 or 4 rows of seats, and he revs the engine and pops the clutch. The guy was popping wheelies in a school bus. Rumor has it he was banging the girl's gym teacher too. Good times. I imagined your bus driver as Otto from The Simpsons. My siblings and I went to a small private school that was about a half an hour from home. We were the only kids on the bus that went to that school. The rest got dropped off at a public school first, and we were the last off that night. Needless to say, we spent more time with the driver, Tom, than the other kids did. He favored us. After all the other kids got off, he'd let us move around the bus, sweep the floor, or pick the radio station. At Christmas time he would share his treats that the other kids gave him as gifts. He was awesome. I'll always remember Tom the bus driver. Waiting for the bus with a bunch of other kids in front of my apartment complex. Saw a tabby cat get completely murked by a passing car. Front wheels hit the cat. The cat got flung up against the wheel well, hit the ground, then got smacked by the muffler. The driver immediately stopped and got out as the cat sprinted away. I figured the cat went off and died somewhere. After school that day, I went with a friend of mine over to the house of a friend of his, whom I didn't know. There I saw a tabby cat that looked identical to the one that got smoked in the street earlier. I asked him, "Is this your cat?" He replied, "Yeah, she got hit by a car today but she seems okay." God dang it, Jack Bauer, you really are the man. Not sure why this stuck with me, but this was during the cooler months that you would just crack the windows a bit to get fresh air. We would play football, triangle paper kind, by kicking it back and forth. I kicked it one time and it went out the window. The window only opened far enough that it could barely slide through on the side. It flew back into the bus 7 windows down, also through a window that was barely open enough to have it fit through. Hit a guy in the face. Was extremely bizarre. So weird that a little insignificant memory from my childhood would resonate with Reddit so much. It seriously is one of those memories that I don't know why I remember it. That's some Polar Express crap right there. Some kid in the back of the bus was being harassed by his bully. My school district didn't really do crap about bullies. The kid being bullied was sitting 3 to a seat with his legs in the aisle, and the bully was sitting by one of his friends in the aisle across from the kid he was messing with. The bully decided to start pushing the kid's leg. Before it was verbal, but now it was physical. Kid told bully to stop. Bully mocked him and did it again. Kid then punched the bully in the nose, breaking it and causing this huge amount of blood to leak from it. By now the bus has stopped at some bus stop. The kid gets his stuff and gets off at the bus stop that's a few ahead of his. The second he's off he starts running and going a different route to his house. The bus driver was unaware of what happened until someone yelled for the bus driver to call someone because the bully's nose wouldn't stop bleeding. So she calls someone while the bully is calling his mom crying. So we get the police to show up, his mom. Other kids have called their parents because at this point we've been at a standstill for 30 minutes. And the principal. We don't know who called the police. So they, along with the principal, are asking who did it and to confess. And we are all like, we don't know. Of course we did know, but why would we tell on our hero? The principal and police are talking and they think the kid is still on the bus. We then say, oh, he got off, we don't know where he went or who he was. The principal and police look at the bus driver who shrugs because she didn't realize what was going on until it was too late. We spent 2 hours on that hot bus because of it, but I couldn't even be mad. My middle school bus was wild. Good on you all for not telling. Guy at my school threw a bully down several flights of stairs. Everyone said he tripped. This is almost 30 years ago. My buddy and me were very big Star Wars fans and this was our first year taking the bus. We would sit behind the driver every day and whenever his little stop sign activated, a small red light on his dashboard would flash. Every time this happened one of us would reach past him, pointing and yell, "What's that flashing?" reliving the scene from episode IV in the Millennium Falcon. We did this every day for months. Driver never asked why or asked us to stop. I'm sure he's long dead and often wondered what the frick was wrong with us. I'd only he had said we're losing our deflector shield. I'm making the jump to light speed and then floored the gas. The bus driver when I was in early grade school was named Ross. My neighborhood was the first stop in the mornings, so we were always the first people on the bus. One day, he picked us up and somehow forgot about all the other stops. There were 10-15 total. He gets like a block away from the school when he realizes there's only like 8 kids on the bus. He turns around and goes back through every stop, but all the other kids have already gotten rides with their parents because we were over 30 minutes behind schedule by this point. Ended up being almost an hour late to school. As a kid, it was hilarious. As an adult, I think Ross did drugs. I don't do drugs, I swear. Leroy, high school. We named our bus driver Leroy, 1996, before Leroy Jenkins. This ride or die motherfucker would not speak. He pulled up in his bus, opened the swing arm, glared at us, waited, closed the swing arm, waited. Once we were seated he would drive. Not a word, ever. We drank, we smoked, what finally broke him was a fight. Leroy pulled his bus over and got out of his seat. Standing in the aisle Leroy said that's enough. The entire bus went silent. Leroy was the man. Oh man, I had one of those too. His name was Martin, and I'll be damned if would be calling him Martin. Never Marty or any other variation. He just had a face that said don't freak up or I'll be dropping you at the police station. Hardly ever spoke. When some goth kids wrote Pig B on the back of my book bag, I walked around middle school that entire day without knowing. What they didn't realize is I couldn't afford a new book bag. I had to have someone draw a puppy over it. I was in 5th grade going home from school. One of the kids in the year below me decided once he get off the bus that it would be a great idea to moon all the kids still on the bus. Pulled his pants down too far, and everyone got an eyeful of his junk, including the bus driver. He got in big trouble with the school and got teased for ages after that. In kindergarten some kid on the bus pulled out his dong to show me. I went straight to the bus driver and told her tearfully he showed me his dong, no way she was getting paid enough for that crap. Had to teach a kid why sticking your middle finger up at someone is considered inappropriate and offensive because I was a patrol and was supposed to stop him from doing that. Unfortunately, I didn't know why it was offensive other than that it was. So I finally had to just tell him to ask his parents and not to do it in front of me ever again. Also, I went home with my friend a couple of times in the year that the cicadas were out in full force. There was this one dude who rode on her bus who would collect money from people daring him to eat a cicada. He did this every day for like 2 weeks and by the end of it people would refuse to pay him. I think he just wanted to eat the cicadas but needed an excuse to do it. In 5th grade someone told me to stick up my middle finger. I did not knowing what it meant, and the lunchroom aide came over and scolded me. I told her I didn't know what it meant and I still didn't get what was so bad. The original kid then told me it means you hate God. 1st grade, not 5th. One time this kid Dana, who looked identical to Donkey Lips from Salute Your Shorts, just look it up, was dared to drink an entire room temperature 2-liter bottle of Coke before we got to his stop. This kid chugged the entire bottle down like an absolute champion. At almost the instant his face could form a smug grin of satisfaction from a job well done, he proceeded to barf a borderline fountain of foamy sticky soda all over 2 dozen terrified kids on the bus. It's as if his entire stomach was filled with rolls of Mentos, which was possible considering the candy was at its commercial peak at the time. I mean, the force of this thing could have put out a house fire. His arch reached over like 4 rows of seats and was sprayed wildly back and forth like a diabetic sprinkler system as he struggled to rein control from this carbonated demonic nightmare. The bus driver had to stop the bus to attend to the frightened children, and made a short but sincere effort to pat dry those poor souls caught in ground zero with government grade paper towels. I've never seen anything quite like it, and I'm afraid I may never again. Well done, Dana. Diabetic sprinkler system, you have a way with words. The middle schoolers would always ride the bus at the same time as the high schoolers did in the mornings. Second day of 8th grade and 2 high schoolers in the back had brought their guitars on the bus with them and played the entire way. Anyways, here's Wonderwall. In grade school, a girl with really long hair was sitting next to an open window and her hair got snagged by a tree limb. Ripped a chunk of scalp off her head about the size of a tennis ball. For those wondering, doctors let it heal up and she had surgery later to stretch her scalp to cover it. It ended up looking like a T-scar on the top right corner of her head. You'd never notice it unless she parted her hair to show you. Also, someone later that day ended up finding the chunk of her scalp and hair still tangled on the tree branch. But it was well after she went to the hospital, so they didn't try to sew it back on. Jesus, she's really lucky the fourth didn't snap get neck. One time my friend pushed me out of the seat and I fell and faceplanted on a guy's dong. I'm a girl. Fell. This isn't completely related, but it all started on the bus and this post made me remember it. It was about 5 years ago in I think my sophomore year of high school when we went on a field trip to a college. I got in trouble on the bus and was sent to the front of the bus, so one of my friends tweeted free Bramus 33. This is where it got interesting. Since people were asking, my buddies told people that I got arrested for taking some acid from a lab and throwing it around the room and at students. Keep in mind that I went to a school with over 2,000 students and rumors spread like wildfire. The funny thing is everyone bought it. Then it just so happened that we passed a cop car with some guy in orange jumpsuit was in the back. The kids decided to take a picture of it and post it also with the same caption as the first post. After that, everyone, even my friends not on the trip, thought I was in jail because I wouldn't answer my phone on the bus. And since my mom worked at the school, word got around to her and she was freaking out. I got back to the school and just hopped in my car because it was the end of the day, so people were clueless to what happened. The crazy thing was, people who I barely knew still asked me about getting arrested months after. Looking back, it was better than any senior prank that occurred while I was there. Rumors are crazy. I had to deal with that, too. There was one time during senior year, though, when there was a rumor that my dad worked a high security clearance job at the Pentagon. That was actually 100% true. My dad worked in the Pentagon for 2 years when I was in middle school. I had never told anyone at that school about that, though. The bus was always the perfect time to play the dong game, where each person took turns saying the word dongs progressively louder. There was always that one guy who just didn't give a frick and would shout duong at the top of his lungs. This game was common in the school auditorium and the library. I went back to my old high school on work business recently and kids were still doing that. It took a lot of effort not to shout back. My bus caught fire. There was a lot of smoke coming out from underneath, but the driver didn't believe us and kept driving. The next time the bus slowed down, a kid who had helped with the bus evacuation drill a week earlier opened the door and jumped out. Once the driver stopped, the kid started getting everyone out by himself until the driver realized we weren't just being crappy and started helping. We got a new driver after that. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.